What's up guys, and welcome to the channel. My name is Zach and I make videos about photography, amateur videography, camera gear, and vlogs. So what we're talking about today is the Nikon Z50 and how to set it up for some quick video. Alright, we're going to jump right into this. I'm going to show you how to make two custom user presets today to quickly switch back and forth between A-roll shots and B-roll. For starters, we are going to turn the camera on and also toggle the switch down to video mode. We also want to make sure that our mode dial is set to manual. All right, let's take a look. So first thing I like to set up is the frame rate. You're going to go ahead and hit the I menu and select the second option there, frame size and rate. Click on that, make sure movie quality is high, tap down, and you'll be able to select different options for your frame rate. I like to use 1080 at 24 frames per second as I find this is perfectly acceptable for posting content on YouTube. If you want though, you can actually crank this all the way up to 4K at 30 frames per second. For now, 1080-24 gets the job done for me. Hit OK, and let's move on. Tab left, and let's go to Set Picture Control. What you're going to do here is, well, so the picture control is basically like what the color is going to look like coming out of the camera. For most situations, auto is going to get the job done. If you don't want to do a lot of editing, you can investigate some of the other looks. Vivid seems to be pretty good. It's a little more contrasty than I like. So what I like to do is set flat. Using a flat picture profile gives me a little bit more leeway when I'm going to edit my color in my editing software. Going down, let's set the white balance. Hit OK, and you can look at the different types of white balance for different types of scenarios here. You've got things like auto and sunlight, cloudy, shade, incandescent, fluorescent, flash, and Kelvin, pre. There's a lot of stuff you can do here. For most situations, just setting it to auto, the camera is going to do a pretty good job at figuring out what the white balance is supposed to be. What I like to do though, I actually like to go over to Kelvin and tap down, manually set it to 5600 Kelvin. That matches the color temperature of my lights and also looks really great outside. You can also dial in all sorts of looks with this and basically match any kind of light that you're going to be in. Hit OK, and let's move on. Next thing is the microphone sensitivity. For my Z50, I really like to keep this at 10. Auto does a pretty good job here, but I do find that it often will introduce more noise from the outside when somebody is not talking. So to be a little bit more consistent, I keep it right at 10. It works great with my Rode Video Micro. Hit OK, and let's move on to the actual camera settings. Half press the shutter, and that'll get us to basically the shoot screen. Okay, first up, let's set our shutter speed. So we've got a frame rate of 24 frames per second. To follow the 180 shutter rule, we're just going to set this to double that. So the closest we can get to that on this camera is 1/50th of a second. That's it. Moving on to aperture, you can set this however you like. For my run and gun settings though, I like to keep it on the lowest possible aperture for my lens. The Z50 kit lens has the lowest aperture of 3.5. Moving to ISO. ISO is easy to change. If you look at the top there, there's an ISO, a dedicated ISO button right there. Press and hold that, and then we can make some adjustments to that settings. While holding it, if you move the back dial, you can manually set the ISO number. And if you hold that button and use the front dial, you can turn auto ISO off and on. So for my run and gun settings here, I like to keep this at auto ISO with a base of 100. That gets the job done 90% of the time. Okay, so we have got our settings all ready to go. Let's go ahead and save these to where we can easily recall them. Tap the menu button, and what you're going to do, look at the left, you're actually going to tab down to the setup menu. Tab right, and select Save User Settings. We're going to save this to U1 and save. Boom, that's it. All right. So now, if I, on my mode dial, go to U1, that's going to recall the settings that we just made. Let's go back to manual and set up our slow motion B-roll preset. Okay, not a lot is going to change here. Let's hit the I menu again and select frame rate once again. And what we want to do here, so there's a couple options for frame rates for slow motion B-roll. You've got 1080 at 50, 60, 100, and 120 frames per second. I like to do the 120 frames per second because it really lets you slow that down in post-production. Set that and move on. Our picture control, we want to keep this the same as whatever you chose for the 24 frames per second preset. Same with your white balance. And with the microphone, I actually like to just turn this off. I find that if I'm slowing down a clip in post-production, I actually don't use the audio from the clip. Everything looks good there. Half press the shutter button, and let's get our shutter speed set. So to follow that 180 shutter rule, let's get as close to double the frame rate as we can. We're at 120 frames per second. The closest we can get on this camera is 1/250th of a second shutter. That looks good. The aperture can stay where it's at. And the ISO, auto ISO with a base of 100 is going to get the job done just as well. Tap the menu button. Let's go back to Save User Settings. And this time we're going to save these to U2. Tap Save Settings. Half press the shutter and we're back here. All right, so now I should be able to go to U1. And that's going to give me my 24 frames per second A-roll setup. And if we go to U2, that is going to give me my 120 frames per second B-roll setup. So what's that allow you to do? Man, if you just want to go out and shoot, something interesting's happening, boom, select U1, you're shooting 24 frames per second, and it's going to look nice and cinematic. Hey, you want to get some slow motion B-roll? Quickly select U2, hit record, and you're good to go. That's going to give you some really great slow motion B-roll that you can have a lot of fun with in your editing software. That being said, this is a pretty great little video camera. Hopefully these settings and these presets are going to help you get out there and maybe remove some barriers to getting some great content or just getting started with shooting video. If you guys liked what you saw, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.